Imagine standing in your dress uniform at your own sister's wedding in front of 200 guests. Your father grabs your arm. He does not whisper. He shouts, "Take that scrap metal off. You're embarrassing this family." 200 faces turn to look at you. Some laugh. Some just stare. Your sister, the bride, does not defend you. She smiles like this is exactly what she wanted. But nobody in that room knew who I really was. Nobody knew what those medals on my chest actually meant. And in the next 10 minutes, one man would stand up, look my father dead in the eye, and say 3 words that changed everything. "Stand down." She is. Stay with me, because this story is about to show you what happens when the people who never respected you finally learn exactly who they were dealing with. My name is Sergeant First Class Emily Miller. I am 31 years old, and I have spent the last 9 years of my life in the United States Army. I was deployed 3 times. I earned the rank I hold through blood, sweat, and years most people cannot imagine. But at home, none of that ever mattered. My father, Richard Miller, built a successful real estate business. To him, success only looked one way: money, big houses, expensive cars, and a daughter who married into wealth. My younger sister, Claire, gave him exactly that. She married into a family worth millions. And me? I chose to serve my country instead of chasing a corner office. From the day I enlisted, my father treated me like a disappointment. He never once asked about my missions. He never asked if I was safe overseas. All he cared about was how my choices looked to his rich friends. Claire's wedding was the biggest event our family had ever hosted. Photographers, a live band, a guest list of business partners, socialites, and old money families. My father wanted everything to look perfect, and in his eyes, I did not fit the picture. I almost did not go. But Claire is still my sister, and despite everything, I loved her. So I put on my dress uniform, the same uniform I wore the day I was promoted, the same one I wore the day I came home from my last deployment, and I walked into that ballroom with my head held high. I had no idea what was waiting for me. The wedding was beautiful. Golden lights, white flowers, string music floating through the air. I found my seat near the back, away from the family table, exactly where my father had placed me. I did not complain. I was used to being pushed to the edges. But as the night went on, I noticed the whispers. Claire's friends, dressed in designer gowns, glancing at my uniform like it was something dirty. One of them actually asked, loud enough for me to hear, "Why did they let the help wear a costume?" I stayed silent. I have faced worse than mean words at a party. Then my father approached the VIP table, where I had gone to congratulate Claire. He grabbed my arm before I could even reach her. "What are you doing here dressed like that?" he snapped. "This is a 5-star wedding, not a military parade." I tried to explain calmly that this uniform represented years of sacrifice. He did not want to hear it. "Take that scrap metal off your chest," That was the he moment shouted. My heart "You're truly embarrassing broke. this family in Not front because of my father's everyone words, who matters, but because the of my music sister's seemed to fade. silence. Every Claire guest near us and I used turned to be look. close. My sister When we were said nothing. kids, I was just the one who smiled at her protected new her from husband's bullies family, at school, as if my I was the one who humiliation stayed up with her simply during our part of the parents' entertainment. divorce. And that was the now, moment on my the heart biggest truly night of her broke. life, not She because let of her my father father's humiliate words, me, but because without of a my single sister's word silence. in my defense. Claire, worse,
and I used to
she
be
leaned
close.
toward her new
When we were
mother-in-law,
kids,
and I was the whispered one who something that protected made her the from whole bullies table at laugh. school. I was stood the there, one who stayed in a up with room her full during of our strangers' parents' divorce, wearing the uniform now, that represented on the biggest my night entire of her life, life, and she I let her felt father smaller than I humiliate had me ever felt without a on single any word battlefield. in my defense.
I could have walked
Worse,
out. Part of
she
me
leaned
wanted
toward
to,
her new mother-in-law,
but something inside
and
me,
whispered
call it
something that
discipline,
made
call
the
it
whole
pride,
table laugh.
told me to
I
stand
stood there,
still,
in a room
straighten
full
my
of
back,
strangers,
do not
wearing
give
the
them the
uniform that
satisfaction
represented
of
my
seeing me
entire
break.
life's work.
So I
And I
did.
felt smaller than I adjusted had my ever uniform, felt on looked my any father battlefield. directly in the eyes.
I could
and
have walked
said
out.
quietly,
Part of me
"I
wanted
did not
to,
come here for
but
your
something
approval.
inside me,
I
call
came
it
here for
discipline,
Claire."
call it pride,
He scoffed
told me
and
to
turned
stand
away,
still,
already
straighten
reaching
my
for
back,
a champagne glass.
do not give them the
already
satisfaction
moving on
of
like
seeing
I
me
did
break.
not matter.
So
But
I
someone
did.
else in that room
I
had
adjusted
been
my
watching the
uniform,
entire exchange,
looked my father directly in the
he was
eyes,
not
and
laughing,
said quietly,
5. I
"The
did
turning
not come
point."
here for your approval.
His name was
I
Major
came
General
here for
Daniel
Claire.
Cole.
He was
the
scoffed
groom's
and
uncle,
turned away,
a decorated
already
senior
reaching for
officer with
champagne
over
glass,
30 years of service,
already moving
and
on
one of the
like
most
I did not
respected men
matter.
in military
But
leadership
someone else
on
in
the
that
East
room
Coast
had been watching
he
the
had been
entire
sitting near the
exchange,
VIP table
and he
the
was not
entire
laughing.
time.
His
He
name
heard
was
every
Major
word
General
my
Daniel
father
Cole.
screamed.
He was the
And when he
groom's
saw the
uncle,
insignia
a
on my
decorated
uniform,
senior officer
his
with over
expression
30 years of
changed
service,
completely.
and one
He
of the
stood
most
up from his
respected
chair.
men in
The
military
room went
leadership
quiet,
on the East Coast.
sensing that
He had been
something
sitting
important
near the
was about to
VIP
happen.
table the entire
He walked
time.
directly toward
He had
my
heard
father,
every word
and
my
in a
father
firm,
screamed,
commanding
and
voice
when he saw
that
the
filled the
insignia
entire
on my
ballroom,
uniform,
he said the
his
words
expression
that would change the night
completely.
forever.
He stood up from his
Stand
chair.
down.
The
She
room
is a
went
decorated
quiet,
combat medic
sensing
who
that
saved
something
12
important
lives
was about
during
to
an
happen.
ambush in a
He
war
walked
zone.
directly
Most people
toward
in
my
this room
father,
could not
and in a
survive
firm,
for 12 minutes.
commanding voice that
Gasps
filled the
spread
entire
across the
ballroom.
tables. He said
My
the words
father's
that would
face
change
went
the
pale.
night forever.
The general continued.
Stand down.
He explained,
She is a decorated
in front
combat
of all
medic
200
who
guests,
saved 12
that the
lives during
scrap
an
metal
ambush
my
in a war
father
zone.
had
Most
mocked
people
included
in this
a
room
bronze
could
star
not
for
survive
valor,
for 12
a
minutes.
purple heart earned from an
Gasps
injury
spread
sustained
across
while
the
pulling a
tables.
wounded
My
soldier to
father's
safety,
face went
and
pale.
a unit
The
commendation
general
for
continued.
extraordinary
He
courage
explained,
under fire.
in front
He
of
turned
all
to Claire's
200
new
guests,
husband,
that the
who
scrap
happened to
metal
be one of my former
father had
patients,
mocked included
a soldier I
bronze
had
star for
personally
valor,
treated during my
a
last
purple heart
deployment,
earned from an
though
injury
nobody in that
sustained
room,
while
including
pulling
my
a
own
wounded
family,
soldier to safety,
ever knew that
and
connection.
a unit
The
commendation
groom
for
stood up,
extraordinary
visibly
courage under
shaken,
fire,
and looked
he
at my
turned to
father.
Claire's new husband.
She's the reason
who
I'm
happened to be
alive
one
today,
of my former
he said.
patients.
She's
A
the
soldier
reason
I
I
had
got to walk
personally
down
treated
that
during
aisle.
my last
And you
deployment,
called her
though
scrap
nobody
metal.
in that room,
The
including
room
my own
fell
family,
into complete
ever knew that
silence.
connection.
My
The
father
groom stood up,
the man who
visibly
built his whole
shaken,
identity
and
on
looked at my
status
father.
and appearances.
She's the reason
was
I'm
suddenly
alive
the one
today,
being
he
judged
said.
by
She's
everyone
the
he had
reason I
tried
got
to
to walk
impress.
down that aisle.
Claire's mother-in-law,
And you called her scrap
the
metal.
same woman who had laughed
The
at me
room
minutes
fell
earlier,
into complete
now
silence.
looked embarrassed
My father,
beyond words.
the man who
The
built his
guests who
whole
had
identity
smirked at
on
my
status
uniform
and
now looked at
appearances,
me with
was
something
suddenly the
entirely
one being
different,
judged by
everyone he had tried
and
to
a little
impress.
bit of shame.
Claire's mother-in-law,
My father tried to
the
speak,
same woman who had
tried to
laughed at me
explain
minutes
himself,
earlier,
but
now
nothing
looked
came out.
embarrassed beyond
For the first
words.
time in my life,
The guests who had
I watched
smirked at
him
my
lose
uniform
control
now
of a
looked at
room
me with
he had
something
spent years
entirely
trying to
different.
dominate.
Respect
I did not gloat,
and a little bit of
I did not
shame.
raise my
My
voice.
father tried to speak.
I simply stood
tried
there,
to explain
calm
himself,
and
but
composed.
nothing came
the
out.
way I had been
For the
trained
first
to
time
stand
in my
in
life,
situations far
I
more
watched him
dangerous
lose
than
control
this
of a
one.
room.
Claire
He had spent
finally
years
broke down
trying
in
to dominate.
tears. I
She
did not
rushed
gloat.
toward me,
I did not raise
apologizing
my
over
voice.
and over.
I simply
admitting
stood
that
there,
she had been too
calm
afraid
and
of upsetting our
composed.
father to speak
The way
up.
I had been trained
Even
to
when
stand
she
in
knew what he was
situations
doing
far
was
more
wrong.
dangerous than this
I
one.
forgave her in that
Claire
moment.
finally broke
Not
down
because
in
the
tears.
pain disappeared.
She rushed toward
but because
me,
I understood
apologizing
that fear
over
had kept
and
her
over,
silent,
admitting that she had been
fear
too
had
afraid
kept
of
me
upsetting
quiet
our
for
father
years.
to speak up.
But
Even when
forgiveness
she
for my
knew what he
father
was
would
doing
not
was
come
wrong.
so easily.
I forgave
in the
her in
weeks
that
that followed.
moment.
Not
Not
because
because
the
happened at
pain
that wedding
disappeared
spread through my
but because
father's
I
business
understood that
circles.
fear had
The
kept
very
her silent.
people he had
The
tried
same way
so
fear
hard
had
to
kept
impress
me
began
quiet for
asking
years.
questions about his
But
own
forgiveness
daughter's
for my
military
father
service.
would not come so
service
easily.
he had hidden
In
and
the weeks
dismissed
that
for
followed,
years.
word of what
Instead
happened
being
at that wedding
celebrated
spread
as the
through my
man with
father's
two
business
successful
circles.
daughters,
The
he
very
became
people
known
he had
as the
tried
father
so
who
hard to
publicly
impress began
humiliated
asking
a
questions
decorated
about his own
soldier
daughter's
at her own
military
sister's
service.
wedding.
Service
Several
he had
longtime
hidden and
business
dismissed
partners
for years.
quietly distanced
Instead
themselves
of
from
being
him,
celebrated as the man
uncomfortable
with
with
two
what his
successful
actions
daughters.
revealed about his
He
character.
became known as
My
the
father
father
eventually
who publicly
called me.
humiliated
It was not
a
easy
decorated
for him.
soldier at
His
her own
voice
sister's
cracked
wedding.
in a way
Several
I had never
longtime
heard before.
business partners
He apologized,
quietly distanced
truly
themselves from him,
apologized for the first time in my life
with what his actions
he admitted
revealed about
he
his
had been
character.
so obsessed
My
with
father
appearances
eventually
that he never
called
once
me.
stopped to
It was
ask
not
what his
easy
daughter
for
had
him.
actually
His voice
sacrificed
cracked
for her
in a
country.
way I had never heard
accepted
before.
his apology.
He apologized,
but I also
truly
set a
apologized
for the
I
first
told
time
him
in my
respect
life.
is not
He
something
admitted
that comes
he
with
had
an
been so
apology
obsessed
alone.
with appearances
It comes
that he
with
never
change.
once stopped to ask
And
what his
slowly,
daughter
over
had
time,
actually
he
sacrificed
began to show up differently. I accepted his
about my
apology,
service,
but I also
attending
set a
events
boundary
he once avoided, and
I told him
finally
respect
introducing
is
me
not
to his
something that
friends
comes
not
with
as
an
an
apology
embarrassment,
alone,
but with
it comes
genuine
with change.
pride.
Claire,
And slowly,
and
over
I
time,
grew closer than
he
ever.
began to show up
She
differently,
became one of the loudest
asking about my
voices,
service,
defending veterans
attending
in her
events
new
he once
social
avoided,
circle,
and finally
determined to
introducing
never
me to
stay
his friends
silent
not
again.
as an embarrassment,
I did not need
but
revenge
with
that
genuine
night.
pride.
I did not need
Claire,
to shout back or
and I grew
storm out in
closer
anger.
than ever.
The truth
She
defended
became one of the
itself,
loudest
spoken
voices
by someone
defending
who saw
veterans
what
in
my
her
own
new
family
social circle,
refused to see.
determined
This
to
story
never stay
taught me
silent
something I will
again.
carry for
I
the
did
rest
not
of my
need
life.
revenge that
Respect
night.
is not
I did not
measured
need
by
to shout
money,
back or storm out in
status,
anger,
or
the
how
truth
a person
defended
looks at a
itself,
dinner table.
spoken
It
by
is measured
someone
by
who
sacrifice,
saw what my
by
own family
character,
refused to see,
and by the quiet
This story
strength to
taught
stand
me
tall
something I
even
will
when the
carry
people
for
who
the
are
rest of my
supposed to
life.
love you the most try to
Respect
make you
is
feel
not
small.
measured by money,
If someone in your life has
status,
ever made you
or
feel
how a
like you are
person
not
looks
enough
at a dinner table,
remember this:
it is measured
the
by
truth
sacrifice,
always
by
finds its
character,
moment, And
by
when
the
it
quiet
does,
strength
you
to
do not
stand
need to
tall
scream
even
to be
when the
heard.
people who are supposed
Sometimes,
to love you the most
all
try
you
to
need
make
to
you
do
feel
is
small.
stand your ground.
If someone in your
If
life
this
has
story
ever
moved
made you
you,
feel like
share
you
it
were
with
not
someone
enough,
who needs to hear it
remember
today.
this.
And
The
remember,
truth always
never let
finds its
anyone
moment.
convince you that your
And when it
sacrifice
does,
is scrap
you do
metal.
not need to scream to be heard. Sometimes, all you need to do is stand your ground.
If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And remember, never let anyone convince you that your sacrifice is scrap metal.